Good morning. My name is Dan Wright. I'm the mayor of the town of Vernon. And with my last election, I became the longest serving mayor of the town of Vernon. This is my 8th term. And that sounds a little worse than it is. In fact, that our terms are only 2 years long. And so I'm serving my 16th year as the mayor of the town of Vernon. Up until about 3 years ago, Vernon had the only mayor of a town in the state of Indiana. Now Zionsville petitioned the state legislature to allow them to have a mayor as well. So there are now 2 towns in the state of Indiana that have mayors. Well, this is unique in the fact that most other mayors, or all other mayors, are mayors of cities instead of towns. And this is because Vernon became a town a year before the state became a state, and we operate under a unique charter. So our elections are held every odd year on the first Monday in March, and a lot of times the Secretary of State will come and open our polls because as chief election official, there's no other election going on that time of year. So anyway, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my town. The town was founded in 1815, as I said, and that was a year before the state became a state, and it was 2 years before the county became a county. We are the county seat of Jennings County. We're the smallest county seat in the state of Indiana, one of the smallest county seats in the United States. Our population is only 323 people. The entire town is on the National Register of Historic Places, and as such, we have a lot of neat history here. To begin with, the first railroad in the state of Indiana ran from Madison to Vernon, and that was completed in 1841. There's a tunnel at the end of Pike Street near Gain Street that is the first elevated tunnel above a road west of the Alleghenies. So it's one of the first of many firsts the town of Vernon has observed in the state of Indiana. One of the other firsts that's very unique in that the first all-women jury in the state of Indiana was held here in Vernon at a particular trial in 1921, shortly after the Suffrage Act was passed, and it is believed to be the second all-women jury in the United States, behind one that happened in Los Angeles. We also have a playground located in the Commons. It's called the Commons at the end of Jackson Street, and the Commons is the first public ground set aside in the state of Indiana as a public playground. In fact, John Vaughter, the founder of Vernon, was very forward-thinking, and so he set aside this ground to be a playground, and it's actually titled to all the children of the state of Indiana. It's very unique in that fashion. We also have an African-American school that's located on Perry Street. It's now a residence, but it was built as an African-American school, and in the early 20th century, it was the first desegregated school in the state of Indiana. We have a lot of notable personalities that have been in Vernon. One is Ovid Butler, the founder of Butler University. His father was the headmaster at the seminary school here in Vernon, and that's where Ovid got his secondary education, was here in the town of Vernon. He later became an attorney and obviously was the founder of Butler University. We have also had a lot of famous painters that came to Vernon. A part of the Hoosier group loved to come to Vernon, and this was one of the areas they loved to come and paint. They painted streetscapes. They painted around the Muscatatuck River, which surrounds Vernon. And most notable of that group was T.C. Steele, and also John Forsyth, who was a major painter as a part of that group as well. So it's a very beautiful area that we live in. Located south of us is Crosley State Fish and Game Area, which is about 5,000 acres of just wilderness. And then we have the Muscatatuck County Park that's located to the north of us. And Muscatatuck County Park is a 280-acre park that was the 4th state park in the state of Indiana. But in the 60s, it was turned back over to the county as a county park, and it's still maintained as a county park today. On the other side of town, there's Cali Farm, which is a nature preserve, and Rock Rest Falls is located next to Cali Farm, which is another beautiful area that we have in and around the town of Vernon. We also have some beautiful scenery and what used to be Baldwin's Mill, which is located just south of us, located on the Crosley State Fish and Game Area property. But it was a mill that actually diverted water through the tunnel, and it ran a mill, so it actually dumped from one side of the river back into the other side of the river on the other side of the hill that it was located on. The Muscatatuck is a name that means land of winding waters in the native tongue of the area, and that's significant is that it meanders quite a bit around the area, including the town of Vernon. In fact, there's only one land connection to the town of Vernon, as the river completely surrounds the town, except for one area that's wide enough for a highway and for a railroad track, and then it's cliffs on either side of that. And what's unique about that is to get out of Vernon any other way, you have to cross a bridge. So there's 3 bridges to get out of town. Vernon had a significant role in the Civil War in that during the time of the Gettysburg raid by the Southerners into the North, there was also an event going on in Indiana when John Hunt Morgan, a Confederate soldier, brought his troops into Indiana and was advancing to the north, and this was the farthest north point that he came and was turned away at this point. Vernon was had the Home Guard, which is the Vernon Grays that were here to defend the area. And as John Hunt Morgan came here, the governor also sent down Lew Wallace to command the troops, and they were putting up a defense. And when there weren't a lot of soldiers here at that time, but Vernon did some things to make them appear to be there was a lot more soldiers in the area. So they eventually, John Hunt Morgan realized that it wasn't going to be a profitable effort to try to take Vernon, so they turned and went back toward DuPont. Lew Wallace was here, and he also served in one of the houses over on Perry Street that is now owned by Danny and Darlene Stark, and it's a beautiful architecture, Italianate style home that was utilized as the home base for Lew Wallace because it had a really good view of the river, so they could keep an eye on the Confederates as they were attempting to take Vernon. So it's significant in that fact. We also have the largest cemetery in the county is located here in Vernon, and it's just over the hill on the south side of town, and sits in the oxbow of the river. And it's significant and it's very beautiful, but we also have some famous people located in there. We have 3 Indianapolis 500 race car drivers located there. Wilbur Shaw is located there. Wilbur Shaw was significant in that after World War II, he was very much involved in the revigorating of the Indianapolis 500. He was very close to the Holman family, and he was instrumental in making sure that the Indianapolis 500 continued after World War II. Obviously, it had taken a hiatus because of the war, and there was a difficult time to try to run a racetrack, but he was able to manage getting it back up and going, and then even begin to thrive as a major part of Indiana history as well as Indianapolis. So, but he's buried at the Vernon Cemetery along with Pat O'Connor. Pat O'Connor died in the Indianapolis 500 in 1959, and so he is also located in the cemetery. And then also the other one is Jim Hemmings, who is also an Indianapolis 500 race car driver. So, I mean, we have that portion of the history that I think is very significant to our area. A lot of people, I think Pat O'Connor even got a lot of his racing from local tracks and dirt tracks. There's a local track here called Twin City Speedways just outside of town. And it's a big part of the culture in the area, and people love the racing aspect. One of the other firsts that happened in Vernon is that the First Disciples of Christ Church was formed in Vernon. That was the first one formed in Indiana, and it actually was formed in 1831, and then the building was built in 1837. But it was the very first one in the state of Indiana. And their major focus, one of the reasons they were formed, was that to serve as anti-slavery abolitionists. They were very involved in that particular pursuit. Just a couple other things I'd like to share with you is that one of the organizations that was formed in the 1800s is the Clio Club, and that is a women's group, and this is one of the first in the United States. It's just a women's organization, a social organization. They work for helping make the community better, and they still are in operation today. They meet at our historical society. We have a very active historical society located on Brown and Pike Street in Vernon, and that's a county historical society, but they do a lot of things in the community to make people aware of our history. It's a very nice museum, but they also sponsor certain events. This year they sponsored they have for the last 57 years actually sponsored the Sassafras Tea Festival, which occurs on the last weekend in April every year. And that's where we serve sassafras tea, but we also have a Civil War reenactment, and we have a ball, and just a lot of different activities surrounding that event for that weekend. And it's always very successful. The women, actually, there's some men involved as well, I guess. But we bake a lot of pies and sell a lot of pies as a fundraiser for the Historical Society. So this past year, I think they sold 700 pies, so it's a very successful event. Also, I'd like to share with you a little bit about some of the additional history that we have here. We have 3 of the original log cabins that were built that are still in existence in town, and all of them are being occupied either as residents or part-time residents, and so it's a nice little feature to have. We also have some local legends, you know, as we're close to Crosley State Fish and Game Area. There's always been the story of the Crosley Monster, and that's just been an ongoing legend of someone that had spotted them every once in a while, I guess somewhat similar to Sasquatch or whatever. I've never seen him personally, but that's an ongoing legend of the area. Well, I'd like to share one more thing with you. Vernon is an historic town. The entire town's on the National Register of Historic Places. And one of the things that's really difficult in old historic towns, especially in small communities, is the ability to renovate our buildings. We have several old buildings that we would love to renovate, but obviously money and the willpower of people that have that ability is lacking sometimes. But if you're interested in coming to Vernon and looking at what we have to offer, we have some nice restaurants that have been renovated that have renovated old buildings, and some little shops. But we think there's a tremendous opportunity to be a part of an historic community, and we love promoting what we have locally to provide for our citizens and also from others outside of town. So check out our website and our Facebook page. We have a non-for-profit called Friends of Historic Vernon, and we do a lot of different things to promote things going on in town and around the community. So check it out. Thank you.